Day pressed his face against the small window of the transport ship and watched the stars blur past. He was 17 years old and traveling alone to the mining colony on Kepler 442b, where his older brother worked. The journey should have taken 3 days, but something felt wrong. The ship suddenly shook violently. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the passenger cabin. Other travelers started to panic and shout questions at the crew members. Day remained calm and listened carefully to the announcements. "Attention passengers. We have encountered a technical problem. Please remain seated and stay calm." But Day knew this was not a technical problem. Through his window he could see massive dark shapes moving alongside their small transport vessel. These were warships, and they were closing in fast. The transport ship shuddered again as something attached to its hull. Metal groaned and bent. Then came the sound of cutting tools working through the outer walls. Pirates or worse were boarding their ship. Day had read about the Corvan Empire in school. They were one of the most powerful alien races in this part of the galaxy. They were known for taking prisoners and selling them as slaves or using them for entertainment in their fighting arenas. The cutting stopped. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors outside the passenger cabin. The door burst open with a loud crash. 3 massive alien soldiers entered the cabin. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with thick gray skin and 4 arms each. Their eyes glowed yellow in the dim emergency lighting. These were Corvan shock troopers, and they wore heavy black armor covered in weapons. The lead soldier spoke in broken human language. "All passengers come with us now. No fighting or we kill you quick." The other passengers cried and begged for mercy. Some tried to hide under their seats. The Corvan soldiers laughed at their fear and began grabbing people roughly by their arms and dragging them toward the door. When they reached Day, the lead soldier stopped and looked down at him. "This one is just a child, very small and weak-looking." The second soldier nodded. "Humans are the weakest race in the galaxy. This boy will not last long in the fighting pits." "Good for warm-up entertainment before real warriors fight," said the third soldier with a cruel grin. They grabbed Day by his shoulders and pulled him to his feet. He did not resist or cry out like the other passengers. Instead, he watched everything carefully and listened to every word the aliens said to each other. The Corvan soldiers led all the passengers through connecting tubes into their warship. The ship was enormous, much larger than anything Day had ever seen. The corridors were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. Strange symbols covered the walls, and the air smelled like metal and something he could not identify. They were taken to a large holding area deep inside the ship. The room had dozens of small cells with energy barriers instead of solid doors. The Corvan soldiers pushed the prisoners into different cells, separating them from each other. Day found himself sharing a cell with an injured alien who looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird. The creature had green scales, a sharp beak, and feathers along its arms. It was sitting in the corner of the cell, holding its left arm, which appeared to be broken. "My name is Crix," the alien said in surprisingly good human language. "I am from the Zelani system. What is your name, young human?" "I am Day. Are you hurt badly?" Crix nodded sadly. "The Corvan soldiers broke my arm when they captured my merchant ship 2 days ago, but I am lucky to be alive. Many of my crewmates were killed during the attack." Day sat down next to Crix and examined the alien's injured arm. He had learned some basic first aid from his father, who worked as a medic on their home colony. "I can help make a simple splint if you want," Day offered. Crix looked surprised. "You would help me? But I am not human. That does not matter. You are hurt and I can help." Using strips of cloth from his own shirt and a piece of metal from the cell wall, Day carefully created a splint for Crix's broken arm. The alien warrior watched with interest as the human boy worked with steady hands. "You are not like other humans I have met," Crix said. "Most of your kind panic when they are captured, but you seem very calm." "Panicking will not help us escape," Day replied simply. "It is better to watch and learn about our captors." Crix nodded with respect. "You think like a warrior even though you are young. Tell me, what do you know about the Corvan Empire?" "I know they are strong fighters who enjoy violence. They capture other species to fight in their arenas for entertainment. The winners get to live another day, and the losers die. That is correct, but there is more you should know. Crix leaned closer and lowered his voice. This ship has the most famous fighting arena in the Corvan fleet. It is called the Apex Arena. Only the strongest and most skilled warriors survive more than one fight there. Day listened carefully as Crix explained more about the arena. The fights were broadcast throughout the Corvan Empire for entertainment. Spectators from many different alien races came to watch and place bets on the outcomes. Humans are always used as opening entertainment, Crix continued. The crowd enjoys watching weak opponents get killed quickly before the real matches begin. I have never seen a human survive more than a few minutes in the Apex Arena. How long have you been watching these fights? Day asked. I was a gladiator myself for 2 years before my last injury. I won 43 matches before they broke my arm and threw me back in this cell. Now I am too damaged to fight, so they will probably sell me as a slave. Day absorbed this information without showing any emotion on his face. Crix was impressed by the young human's self-control. Over the next several hours, Day observed everything around him. He watched the guard rotations and noted that the Corvan soldiers changed shifts every 4 hours. He studied the energy barriers on their cell and noticed they flickered slightly every few minutes. He also listened to conversations between guards and other prisoners. The Corvan soldiers spoke freely around their captives because they believed none of them posed any real threat. From these conversations, Day learned that the ship carried over 3,000 crew members and had enough firepower to destroy small planets. The captain was named Vex Thorn, and he was considered one of the most successful raiders in the Corvan fleet. Most importantly, Day learned that new prisoners were always sent to the arena within 24 hours of capture. This meant he would be fighting for his life very soon. Crix noticed that Day never seemed worried or scared, even when learning about the deadly arena matches ahead. Are you not afraid of dying tomorrow? Crix asked. Day looked at his alien cellmate with calm, steady eyes. Fear will not help me survive, but knowledge and preparation will. The young human had already begun forming a plan. The sound of heavy footsteps woke Day from his light sleep. 4 Corvan guards approached his cell, their yellow eyes glowing in the dim corridor lighting. The energy barrier flickered off with a soft hum. Time for the human boy to entertain the crowd, the lead guard said with a cruel laugh. Today you die for our amusement. Day stood up calmly and walked toward the guards without resistance. Behind him, Crix watched with sad eyes. Remember what I taught you about the arena layout, Crix whispered, and may your ancestors give you strength. The guards grabbed Day's arms and marched him through the ship's corridors. As they walked, more crew members joined them, all eager to see the upcoming spectacle. Word had spread quickly that a human child would be fighting today. Look how small he is, one alien laughed. This will be over in seconds. I bet he cries before the first blow lands, another added. Day listened to their comments but showed no emotion. Instead, he studied the ship's layout as they walked. He counted doorways, memorized turn patterns, and noted the locations of weapon storage areas they passed. They reached a large elevator that took them up several levels. When the doors opened, Day heard something that made his heart beat faster. It was the sound of thousands of voices cheering and shouting. The elevator led directly to a waiting area beneath the arena floor. The room was filled with weapons of all kinds hanging on the walls. Swords, axes, energy weapons, and strange alien tools that Day could not identify. Everything looked old and battle-worn. A massive alien creature entered the waiting area. It stood over 9 feet tall with thick red skin and 4 muscular arms. Spikes grew from its shoulders and back. This was Grak the Destroyer, the arena master. Welcome to the Apex Arena, little human, Grak said in a voice like grinding stone. I am surprised they sent someone so young and weak. Usually the warm-up fights last at least a few minutes. Grak walked around Day, examining him like a piece of meat. You may choose any weapon from these walls. Not that it will help you live longer, but it makes the show more interesting for our audience. Day looked at the weapons carefully. Most were too heavy for him to use effectively. The energy weapons would require knowledge he did not have. But there in the corner he saw something useful. It was a simple metal staff, about 5 feet long and perfectly balanced. "I choose this," Day said, picking up the staff. Grak laughed, loudly. "A stick? You choose a stick to fight with? This will be even more amusing than I thought." The arena master led Day to a large platform that began to rise toward the ceiling. As they went up, the sounds of the crowd grew louder and louder. Bright lights suddenly hit Day's eyes as they emerged onto the arena floor. The Apex Arena was enormous. It stretched out in all directions like a small city. The floor was covered with different zones that created a complex battlefield. There were raised platforms, deep pits, walls for cover, and open spaces for fighting. Strange gravity fields made some areas where fighters could jump higher or move faster. Energy barriers created maze-like passages that could be activated and deactivated during battles. Ancient ruins provided hiding spots and elevated positions. Around the arena, thousands of aliens sat in tiered seating that rose up toward the ceiling. Day could see dozens of different species in the crowd. Some looked humanoid while others were completely alien. All of them were here to watch beings fight and die for entertainment. Citizens of the Corvan Empire. Grak's voice boomed through speakers around the arena. "Today we begin with special entertainment. A human child will face 3 of our finest shock troopers in combat." The crowd erupted in laughter and cheers. Betting screens around the arena showed odds heavily against Day surviving more than 30 seconds. 3 Corvan soldiers entered the arena from the opposite side. These were not regular crew members, but elite warriors chosen specifically for arena combat. They wore lighter armor than the ship guards, but their weapons were much more advanced. The first warrior was named Zeph. He carried a plasma rifle that could burn through metal and an energy shield that could deflect most attacks. He had fought in the arena 12 times and won every match. The second warrior was Kral. He preferred close combat and carried twin energy blades that could cut through almost anything. His armor was reinforced around his vital areas, and he moved with the grace of a trained killer. The third warrior was Voss. He was the largest of the 3 and carried a massive warhammer that could crush bones with a single blow. His role was to finish off opponents after his teammates wounded them. "Look at them carefully, human," Grak said to Day. "These warriors have killed over 50 opponents between them. You are about to become number 51. Day studied each opponent carefully. He noted how they moved, how they held their weapons, and how they positioned themselves relative to each other. He also examined the arena terrain around them, looking for advantages he could use. The crowd grew louder as the warriors took their positions. Vendors moved through the seating areas, selling food and drinks. Large screens showed close-up views of the fighters so everyone could see the action clearly. In the VIP section, Commander Vex Thorn sat with other high-ranking officers. He was looking forward to seeing the human child die quickly, so they could move on to more interesting matches. "The boy looks calm for someone about to die," one officer observed. "Humans are known for being too stupid to understand danger," Thorn replied. "He probably does not realize what is about to happen to him." But Thorn was wrong. Day understood exactly what was about to happen. He had spent the last several hours preparing for this moment mentally. He knew he was facing 3 experienced killers with superior weapons and armor. However, he also knew something his opponents did not. Humans had survived and thrived in a dangerous universe not because they were the strongest or fastest, but because they were the most adaptable. They could learn quickly, think creatively, and find solutions that others missed. Grak raised his 4 arms to signal the start of the match. The crowd fell silent with anticipation. "Warriors of the arena," Grak announced. "Let the battle begin." A deep horn sounded throughout the arena. The 3 Corvan soldiers immediately activated their weapons and began moving toward Day with confident steps. Day gripped his simple metal staff and took a deep breath. It was time to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of when their backs were against the wall. The real fight was about to begin. The 3 Corvan warriors moved toward Day with complete confidence. They had done this many times before. Kill the weak opponent quickly, give the crowd some blood, then prepare for the real fights later. Zeph raised his plasma rifle and took aim at the human boy. The weapon charged with a high-pitched whine that echoed across the arena. At this distance, he could not miss. But Day was already moving. Instead of running away like every other opponent had done, Day ran straight toward the three warriors. This surprised them so much that Zeph hesitated for just a moment before firing. The plasma bolt flew through the air where Day had been standing a second before. The crowd gasped as the human boy rolled behind a low wall just as the energy blast hit the arena floor, sending up sparks and smoke. Crawl laughed and activated his twin energy blades. The little human wants to die up close. How thoughtful of him. The two blade-wielding warriors moved to flank Day while Zeph repositioned for another shot. This was standard arena tactics. Surround the enemy and attack from multiple directions. But Day had watched dozens of arena fights through the ship's entertainment system during his imprisonment. He knew exactly what they would do next. As Crawl approached the wall where Day was hiding, the human boy suddenly appeared from a different direction entirely. He had crawled through a drainage channel that ran under the arena floor. Day's metal staff struck Crawl's knee joint with perfect precision. The Corvin warrior's armor was designed to protect against energy weapons and cutting blades, but it had weak points at the joints where flexibility was needed. Crawl roared in pain and stumbled backward. His left leg buckled under his weight, and he fell to one knee. The crowd, which had been laughing moments before, suddenly went quiet. Voss, the largest warrior, charged forward with his massive warhammer raised high. The weapon could crush a small vehicle with a single blow. Surely this would end the fight quickly, but Day was no longer where Voss expected him to be. The human boy had used Crawl's falling body as a springboard to leap high into the air. As Voss brought his hammer down in a devastating blow, Day landed behind him and struck the back of his neck with the staff. The blow hit a nerve cluster that Day had learned about from his father's medical training. Voss dropped his hammer and fell face first onto the arena floor, temporarily paralyzed. The crowd began to murmur with confusion and disbelief. This was not how these fights were supposed to go. Zeph frantically tried to get a clear shot at the human, but Day was moving too fast and staying too close to the other warriors for Zeph to fire safely. The plasma rifle was powerful, but it would kill his teammates if he missed. Crawl struggled to stand up on his damaged leg. He still had his energy blades and years of fighting experience. One human child should not be able to defeat him. Stand still and die like you were supposed to, Crawl snarled, slashing at Day with both blades. Day ducked under the first blade and stepped inside Crawl's reach. The Corvin warrior was much larger and stronger, but his size worked against him in close quarters. He could not bring his weapons to bear effectively. Using his staff like a lever, Day applied pressure to Crawl's already damaged knee. The warrior cried out and fell again, this time dropping one of his energy blades. Day immediately grabbed the fallen weapon. It was heavier than he expected, but he had watched enough fights to understand how it worked. The blade hummed with deadly energy as he activated it. Zeph finally had a clear shot and fired his plasma rifle. But Day had anticipated this. He rolled to the side and came up running toward a gravity well zone in the arena. The plasma bolt missed and hit one of the ancient pillars, which exploded in a shower of stone fragments. Some of the debris hit spectators in the lower seating areas, causing them to shout in alarm. In the gravity well zone, Day's weight was reduced by half. He could move faster and jump higher than anywhere else in the arena. More importantly, the Corvin warriors were not used to fighting in altered gravity. Zeph followed Day into the gravity zone, but his heavy armor and weapons made him clumsy in the reduced gravity environment. He stumbled and fell as he tried to aim his rifle. Day leaped over Zeph's head and landed behind him. Before the Corvin could turn around, Day struck him in the back with the energy blade. The weapon cut through Zeph's armor like it was made of paper. Zeph screamed and fell forward, his plasma rifle sliding across the arena floor. The crowd was now completely silent. In less than 3 minutes, a human child had defeated 3 elite Corvin warriors, using nothing but strategy, speed, and knowledge of anatomy. In the VIP section, Commander Thorne stood up from his seat with shock written across his face. This is impossible. Humans are the weakest species in the galaxy. They cannot fight like this. But the evidence was right there in the arena for everyone to see. Voss was slowly recovering from the nerve strike and trying to crawl toward his warhammer. Kral was attempting to stand on his damaged leg while clutching his remaining energy blade. Zeph was curled up on the ground, moaning in pain from his back wound. Day stood in the center of the arena, breathing heavily, but uninjured. He still held the captured energy blade in one hand and his original staff in the other. The arena screen zoomed in on his face. Unlike his opponents, who were crying out in pain and frustration, Day's expression was calm and focused. He looked like he was solving a puzzle rather than fighting for his life. Grak the Destroyer stared at the scene in disbelief. In all his years as arena master, he had never seen anything like this. The human had not just survived the opening moments of combat. He had completely dominated 3 experienced killers. The crowd began to whisper among themselves. Some aliens were angry that their bets had been wrong. Others were fascinated by what they had witnessed. A few were beginning to wonder if everything they knew about humans was incorrect. But the fight was not over yet. The 3 Corvan warriors were injured, but still alive. They had weapons, armor, and years of training. Surely they could still defeat one human child. As if reading their thoughts, Day looked up at the crowd and then at his opponents. For the first time since entering the arena, he smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator that had been underestimated for far too long. The real lesson was about to begin. The arena fell completely silent as Day finished his opponents. Voss lay unconscious from a second nerve strike. Kral could not stand on his shattered leg. Zeph writhed on the ground, his back armor cracked and smoking from the energy blade. Woundstar 3 elite Corvan warriors, veterans of dozens of arena battles, had been defeated by a 17-year-old human boy in less than 5 minutes. Grak the Destroyer grabbed his communication device with shaking hands. His voice echoed through the arena speakers, but for the first time in his career he seemed uncertain about what to say. The human is victorious, he announced slowly. This concludes today's opening match. The crowd remained frozen in shocked silence for several more seconds. Then the arena erupted into chaos. Some aliens cheered wildly while others booed and threw objects toward the arena floor. Many simply sat in stunned disbelief. In the VIP section, Commander Thorn turned to his officers with rage in his yellow eyes. How is this possible? Our intelligence reports said humans were weak and cowardly. They break easily under pressure. His second in command, a scarred Corvan named Drex, shook his head slowly. Sir, I watched the entire fight. The human boy never panicked. Every move was calculated. He used our own warriors' strengths against them. One lucky fight does not change anything, Thorn snapped. Humans are still the weakest species in the galaxy. But even as he said the words, Thorn felt doubt creeping into his mind. He had seen thousands of arena matches over the years. Luck alone could not explain what had just happened. Down in the arena, medical teams rushed to treat the wounded Corvan warriors. Day stood quietly in the center of the battlefield, still holding the captured energy blade. Arena guards surrounded him but kept their distance, unsure how to handle a prisoner who had just accomplished the impossible. The fight footage was already being transmitted throughout the ship's internal network. Crew members gathered around, viewing screens in mess halls, recreation areas, and duty stations. Everyone wanted to see the human child who had defeated 3 elite warriors. In the ship's tactical center, a thin, blue-skinned alien named Quinn studied the combat recordings. With intense focus, Quinn belonged to the Nixari species, known throughout the galaxy for their analytical minds and strategic thinking. Quinn replayed the fight sequence multiple times, examining every movement and decision. What others saw as an impossible victory, Quinn recognized as something far more disturbing. Computer, analyze human combat patterns from arena recording, Quinn commanded. The ship's artificial intelligence processed the data and displayed the results on multiple screens. Charts and graphs showed movement patterns, reaction times, and tactical decisions made during the fight. Analysis complete, the computer announced. Subject demonstrates advanced pattern recognition, superior adaptation speed, and tactical thinking beyond expected parameters for human species. Quinn's large eyes grew even wider as the full implications became clear. Computer. Cross-reference with Galactic database on human military capabilities. More data filled the screens. Historical records of human conflicts, military strategies, and survival rates in hostile environments. The picture that emerged was very different from what most galactic species believed about humanity. Fascinating, Quinn whispered. The human was not fighting desperately for survival. Every action was controlled and purposeful. He was testing his opponents, learning their weaknesses, and exploiting them systematically. Meanwhile, news of the arena fight spread beyond the ship itself. The Corvan fleet maintained constant communication with other vessels, and gossip traveled fast among the crews. On the battleship Crimson Fang, Captain Nex received a message from Commander Thorn about the unusual arena match. At first, Nex laughed at the report. A human child defeated 3 shock troopers. Thorn must be joking or drunk, Nex told his bridge crew. But when the fight recording arrived, Nex watched it 3 times in complete silence. His amusement quickly turned to concern. Send this to Admiral Korath immediately, Nex ordered, and increase security around any human prisoners we might have aboard. Similar reactions occurred throughout the Corvan fleet. What had been intended as simple entertainment was becoming a serious military concern. Back on the main ship, alien crew members began placing bets on what would happen if the human fought again. Some wagered that his victory was pure luck and would not be repeated. Others started to wonder if humans might be more dangerous than anyone realized. In the prison levels, word of Day's victory reached the other captives. Crix, the injured Zalani warrior, could hardly believe what he heard from the guards. The human boy won? Crix asked a passing guard. He actually defeated 3 Corvan warriors? The guard nodded grimly. Saw it myself on the viewing screens. Never seen anything like it. The kid moved like he had been fighting in arenas his whole life. Other prisoners began to whisper among themselves. If a human child could defeat elite Corvan warriors, what did that say about human capabilities in general? A grizzled Altarian mercenary named Hex, who had been imprisoned for 6 months, shared his thoughts with nearby cellmates. I fought alongside human soldiers during the frontier. Wars 20 years ago, Hex said quietly. Command always treated them like they were expendable because they seemed so fragile. But I noticed something the officers missed. The other prisoners leaned closer to listen. Humans never gave up, Hex continued. No matter how bad things got, they kept fighting and finding new ways to survive. Other species would surrender when the odds became impossible, but humans just got more creative and dangerous. These conversations were happening all over the ship. Aliens who had dismissed humans as weak and pathetic were suddenly reconsidering everything they thought they knew. In his private quarters, Commander Thorn tried to contact Admiral Korath to report the incident, but the Admiral was in a strategy meeting and could not be disturbed. Thorn paced back and forth, replaying the arena fight in his mind. Something about the human boy's performance bothered him beyond the simple fact of victory. Drex, bring me all available intelligence files on human military history, Thorn commanded his second-in-command. Sir, we already know humans are weak. Why waste time studying them further? Because, Thorn said slowly, I'm beginning to think our intelligence might be wrong. As the hours passed, more ships in the fleet received copies of the arena recording. Captains and crew members watched the impossible victory with growing unease. Some began to question standing orders to treat human prisoners as harmless. Others wondered how many other weak species might be hiding similar capabilities. But most disturbing of all, a few perceptive individuals started to ask a dangerous question. If humans were this capable in combat, why had they allowed themselves to be seen as the weakest species in the galaxy? The answer to that question would change everything. Down in the holding cells, Day sat quietly in his cell, knowing that his victory had accomplished exactly what he hoped it would. Seeds of doubt had been planted throughout the Corvan fleet. Now, those seeds would grow and spread, carrying a message that would eventually reach every corner of the galaxy. Humanity was not what it appeared to be. 3 days had passed since Day's impossible victory, and the Corvan ship buzzed with nervous energy. Commander Thorn had spent sleepless nights reviewing intelligence reports about humans, and what he found disturbed him deeply. Humans had fought in over 200 documented conflicts across the galaxy. In every single case, they had been used as expendable troops by other species who considered them weak. But when Thorne looked closely at the battle reports, a pattern emerged that no one had noticed before. Human units had the highest survival rates of any species when facing impossible odds. They adapted faster to new weapons and tactics than anyone else. Most importantly, they never broke under pressure the way other, superior species did. "Sir," Drex entered Thorne's quarters with a worried expression. "The crew is demanding another arena match. They want to see if the humans' victory was just luck." Thorne looked up from his reports with tired eyes. "What does Grack recommend?" "The arena master suggests we pit the human against a single champion instead of multiple opponents. He believes 3 warriors were too many for proper coordination." Thorne nodded slowly. "Very well, but this time choose our absolute best fighter. I want to see what this human is truly capable of." An hour later, Day was brought back to the arena preparation area. The crowd was even larger than before, with aliens from other ships in the fleet arriving specifically to witness the spectacle. Betting screens showed more even odds this time, though most still favored the alien champion. Grack the Destroyer met Day at the weapon wall. "Today you face Brutus the Bone Crusher, champion of 12 worlds. He has never lost a single combat in 4 years of arena fighting." Day examined the weapons available and again chose the simple metal staff. "I will use this." Grack shook his massive head. "You defeated 3 opponents through luck and their overconfidence. Brutus will not make the same mistakes. He will crush you slowly and painfully." When they rose to the arena floor, Day saw his opponent waiting in the center of the battlefield. Brutus stood 8 feet tall with gray stone-like skin and arms as thick as tree trunks. He wore minimal armor but carried a weapon that looked like a cross between a sword and a club. The crowd roared their approval at seeing their favorite champion. "Citizens of the Empire," Grack announced, "today the human faces our greatest warrior. Brutus has killed over 100 opponents and never shown mercy to any of them." Brutus raised his weapon and bellowed a war cry that echoed throughout the arena. The sound was so loud that some spectators covered their ears. But Day stood quietly, studying his opponent with the same calm focus he had shown before. He noticed how Brutus moved, how he held his weapon, and how his stone-like skin had small gaps between the plates. The battle horn sounded and Brutus charged forward with surprising speed for such a large creature. His weapon came down in a devastating overhead strike that would have crushed any normal opponent. But Day was not where Brutus expected him to be. The human boy had learned from his previous fight. Instead of dodging at the last second, he had moved early, forcing Brutus to adjust his attack mid-swing. This threw the champion off balance for just a moment. Day's staff struck the gap between armor plates on Brutus's left knee. The blow was precise and powerful, targeting the same pressure point he had used against Crawl. Brutus roared in pain but did not fall. His stone-like skin provided better protection than Corvin armor, and his species was naturally resistant to nerve strikes. The champion swung his weapon in a wide arc, forcing Day to jump backward. But Brutus had expected this and followed up with a charge that pinned Day against the arena wall. For the first time in either fight, Day appeared to be in real danger. Brutus raised his weapon for a killing blow, and the crowd cheered wildly. But Day had been studying the arena layout for 3 days. He knew exactly where every gravity well, energy barrier, and obstacle was located. As Brutus brought his weapon down, Day rolled to the side and activated a hidden switch in the wall. An energy barrier suddenly appeared between them, and Brutus's weapon struck it with tremendous force. The impact sent electrical feedback through, the metal shocking the champion and making him drop his weapon. The crowd fell silent again. They had never seen anyone use the arena's own systems as a weapon before. Day did not waste the opportunity. He vaulted over the energy barrier and struck Brutus in the back of the neck with his staff. This time, he knew exactly where to hit, to affect the champion's nervous system. Brutus stumbled forward and fell to his knees. He tried to reach for his dropped weapon, but his coordination was failing. Instead of finishing his opponent quickly, Day stepped back and waited. The crowd watched in confusion as the human boy simply stood there. "Why does he not kill Brutus?" one alien asked another. "Perhaps he is showing mercy," came the reply. But Commander Thorne, watching from the VIP section, understood what was really happening. The human was demonstrating complete control over the situation. He could kill Brutus whenever he chose, but he was making a point instead. Day looked up at the crowd and spoke clearly into the arena's audio pickups. "I did not come here to kill for your entertainment. I came here to show you something important." His voice carried throughout the arena and was broadcast to ships across the fleet. "You think humans are weak because we do not start fights or conquer other species for sport. You mistake our restraint for weakness." Day walked closer to the fallen champion. "But when we are forced to fight, we do not just survive, we excel." He turned to face Commander Thorne directly. "You have underestimated my species for too long. We have been watching you, learning from you, and preparing for the day when your aggression would finally go too far." The arena was completely silent now. Even Brutus had stopped trying to stand and was listening to the human's words. "Every human colony you have raided, every transport ship you have attacked, every prisoner you have taken for your entertainment has been reported back to our military command. We know exactly how many ships you have, where they are located, and what their weaknesses are." Thorne felt ice-cold fear creep through his body. Guards silenced that human immediately, but the arena guards hesitated. They had just watched this same human boy defeat their greatest champion with apparent ease. None of them wanted to face him in combat. Day continued speaking. "In approximately 6 hours, a human battle fleet will arrive at these coordinates. You can choose to surrender and face trial for your crimes, or you can fight and discover why. Every species that has ever gone to war with humanity has eventually surrendered." The communication systems throughout the Corvan fleet crackled to life. Long-range sensors had detected multiple ships approaching their position at high speed. The energy signatures matched no known alien technology. Admiral Korath's voice came through the speakers, tight with panic. "All ships prepare for immediate jump to hyperspace. We are leaving this system now." But it was too late. The approaching human fleet had somehow jammed their hyperspace drives. The Corvan ships were trapped. Day looked around the arena one final time. The crowd of bloodthirsty aliens who had come to watch him die now sat in terrified silence. "My name is Kim Day," he said calmly. "Remember it well. Today marks the beginning of a new era in galactic politics. Humanity is no longer hiding what we are truly capable of." As if summoned by his words, the first human warship appeared on the arena's main viewing screen. It was sleek, deadly, and larger than any Corvan vessel. The age of underestimating humanity was over. In his cell far below, Krix, the Zilani warrior, smiled as he listened to the panic spreading through the ship's corridors. The quiet human boy had not just won his freedom, he had changed the galaxy forever.